right. Good afternoon, wherever you are, whoever you are. Uh, just waiting on Mr. Nimmer to get.
All
the
right. Good
link.
afternoon. Good afternoon,
Hold on,
wherever you are, whoever you are. Just waiting.
Uh, I'm looking at myself, guys, through YouTube and Google at the same time. So I'm gonna go through Google, and I know you guys will be able to see me, obviously streaming already. So I'll just mute that one, and I can do my broadcast from here. Let me see. Hold on 1 second, guys. All right. I'm just trying to wait for him. He's waiting on the link. So hope everybody's doing great. Everyone's doing good on this Saturday morning. Let me see. Uh, Hold on a second. Just bear with me, guys. Get started shortly. Please. Okay, guys, we are going to be getting started shortly. Just to let you all know what this interview is about. Larry is going to be joining me. I'm going to ask him some questions. Larry actually has a YouTube channel, Larry Nimmer. He owns Nimmer Pictures. He has a production company. He also is a documentary filmmaker. So uh, back in 2005, Larry had a pleasure of working with Michael Jackson's defense team with regards to the allegations of sexual assault that he was facing on a minor. Was believed it was 10 felonies, 4 misdemeanors, and Larry's job was he documented for the jury the Neverland Ranch, which was Michael's home that he opened up to the public, in particular disabled children, children that were less fortunate. He did all of those things. So Larry's going to be joining us in a minute. I'm just waiting on him to get the link. Let's see. I see. see. There we go.
Well, hi there.
Hey, how you doing, Larry?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, sir. Thank you for joining us. We are live and we are on. We're ready. Wherever you are, whoever you are, welcome to another episode of G Group 2786. I'm Gavin Richard. This is Gavin Richard Presents, and joining me is Mr. Larry Nimmer of Nimmer Pictures. Did I get that right?
That's right.
That's right. From Carpentiera, California.
Yeah, Carpinteria. I'm right now actually in San Francisco. Is the shot of me okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. We can see you.
Okay.
Yeah, when we're talking, one camera is going to flip to the other. So it's like that. It's a split screen. So Larry is joining us from San Francisco now. And Larry, I put the link to your company's website on my YouTube page for today for this event. But I saw, and I'll give the people some description of things. You've worked in television for over 32 years. Is that right? In production?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And you've worked for different companies. You've worked for MTV, YouTube. You also worked, of course, for today, we're going to be talking about Michael Jackson. But when you worked with, I got to ask you about MTV. So when you worked with MTV, this was in the 80s during the early stages of MTV?
Right.
Okay. Did you meet any big artists then? Did you meet Michael then?
No, I didn't meet Michael then. I made kind of a bunch of music videos for smaller level people. Jane Whelan of the Go-Go's, Sparks, Translator, 45 Grave, a bunch of bands in the early 80s.
I have no idea who those people are.
You probably wouldn't.
No, I'm in the 80s. I was born in 86, so wouldn't remember them. The most I can honestly remember, I do remember watching the Leave Me Alone video, which was in 89, I believe. I do remember the Batman video that Prince had. And I don't know if you ever met him, but I do remember stuff like that. So my memory, is not too great, but I do have some special flashback moments. And you work with YouTube as well. Do you still do work with YouTube? Or?
Well, in terms of YouTube, I guess I put that on my credits. I have a lot of material posted on YouTube, but I don't actually YouTube.
Okay, sure, fair enough. So, but Larry, thank you again for joining us. And I don't know if anybody has questions, but I just have a few questions. We were going to talk about Michael Jackson and his case. Now, you were hired, if I'm not mistaken, was it through Michael, through his attorney, Tom Mesereau, who we both know, is that right?
Yeah, I was hired by Tom Mesereau and Robert Sanger, Michael's attorneys, to create videos and graphics for use in their trial in 2005. I could explain what I was asked to do if you want.
Yes, please.
Well, I was asked to make a documentation of Neverland as if I'm a regular guest and what guests saw when they came to Neverland. And the reason they wanted that was initially they wanted the jury actually to be able to go out to Neverland and see what it was like for themselves, that it wasn't just some dungeon created to molest kids, but it was a healthy environment to give kids a break from their humdrum lives, particularly sick and disadvantaged kids. And the judge didn't want to allow the jurors to go out to Neverland because it was a bit of a drive and complicated to arrange for. But he said he would allow for a video tour of Neverland, and so that's what I was hired to do.
Okay, and you testified as an expert witness for about 2 days, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. So part of what I did was I showed the video to the jurors during the trial, and I narrated the video of explaining what's what. You know, this is the guard booth, this is Michael's bedroom, this is the arcade building. So I would basically had free reign to go wherever I wanted to, wherever guests would normally go, which is throughout most of the property. So I documented the main house, the living room, dining room, kitchen area, Michael's bedroom, some of the bathrooms, the games arcade building, the zoo, and the amusement park. That was quite a lot of fun. I had the amusement park to myself.
So you got to ride on some rides, huh?
That's correct. While I was there, they weren't inviting any other guests because it was during the trial, and I guess they felt it was too sensitive a time. But I tried to create a look of what it would be like if others were visiting at the time.
Yes. Yeah. I've seen your documentary. You actually have it on YouTube. I believe it's called Inside Neverland, the Michael Jackson trial.
Yeah, the initial documentary was called The Untold Story of Neverland, and then I updated it. Yeah, I updated it more recently, and it's called Michael Jackson, A Case for Innocence, where it's part of my old documentary as well as information about the new accusers that were in the movie Leaving Neverland.
Yes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And for warning, I've never watched that documentary. I really didn't want to watch it because I felt it was one-sided, even from the beginning. But a big question I do have is that since you created that documentary and you testified at trial, did you actually get to speak to Michael?
I did kind of hang out with him, and that is in the courtroom. When I was documenting Neverland, I was there off and on for a month, and Michael was often there at Neverland, but I didn't actually see him there because he was doing his own thing, and it wasn't felt that I needed to interview him or anything. And the story of when the first time I actually saw him was just before I testified. I was in the waiting room waiting to testify, and I saw outside the window of the waiting room there was what appeared to be a Boy Scout with a kind of a military jacket with a lot of badges on it. And I went out to see who it was, and it was, sure enough, it was Michael. And so then I waited in the hallway. Michael apparently went to the bathroom, and he was coming back. And as he's coming back into the courtroom, I nodded hello, and I said, "Hi, Michael." And he said, "Hi," just pleasantly. And he didn't know at that point who I was. And then when I testified at the trial, Michael was in the front row, and he listened very attentively, obviously, to what I had to say. And then the second day when I testified, he gave me one of these kind of namaste when he saw me for the second day, appreciating what I told him. The only comments I was aware that he made of my testimony was, apart from the tour video of Neverland, I made a separate video that was an alarm test in Michael's bedroom. And it's because the prosecution claimed that Michael's, the accuser's brother, well, the accuser was Gavin Arvizo, his brother Star Arvizo, snuck up the stairway and observed Michael molesting his brother. But the alarm test showed that when anybody came in the door down below, the alarm went off, so Michael would know someone was there. So basically, for the alarm test, I just put my camera over the bed and recorded what it sounded like from the position of the bed of the alarm going off. And one of the questions the prosecution asked me was, did I measure the loudness of the alarm with a decibel meter? And I said at trial, no, I didn't measure that with a decibel meter because I didn't think that would mean much to the jurors, but I recorded what it sounded like, and I'm testifying that this faithfully sounds like what it sounded like when I was in the room. And Michael turned to one of the attorneys and said, "I could have loaned Larry a decibel meter." So that was the comment on my testimony, but I guess he appreciated it. The attorneys told me I did a good job anyway.
Yeah. Well, apparently, rule that we have in cross-examination as attorneys is never ask a question you don't know the answer to. So if the volume on that was loud enough, then you know, I'm sure that helped, that saved Michael, as well as the fact the Arvizo family got caught in several lies. Could you did you stay at the trial after you testified, or do you know what happened?
No, no, I followed it. I wasn't supposed to be there before I testified, and I couldn't get into the courtroom after I testified. I did go by the trial a number of times because I delivered things to the attorneys. They had an office right across the street from the courtroom, and I saw a lot of the hoopla and the fans, and it was kind of a fun atmosphere to be a part of. And by the way, the office, well, Bob Singer, one of two attorneys, was right across the street, and the media never realized the office was right across the street. He had a temporary office there because Michael would come there and meet with him some of the time, and it was worried that the media would be well, hounding Michael and the attorneys across the street. But they never found it. So when Michael arrived, he would actually get in a car, go around the corner, and then come in the main entrance of the courthouse.
Right. So Tom had a office set up there.
Right. Robert
Right.
Singer did actually, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Robert Singer.
Yeah,
What do
yeah,
you
Tom
think of
Messer. What?
I'm sorry, I was saying, what did you think of Tom Mesereau as a criminal defense attorney?
I think he was brilliant. He was so hardworking, so to the point, had a sense of humor, very diligent, was up late every night and up early every morning preparing the trial. They actually, Tom Mesereau and his other attorney, Susan Yu, rented a condo about a mile away from the courthouse, and that's where they made their preparations, and that's where I met with them some.
Yes. I've actually spoken to Tom before because we and I talked about the Bill Cosby case too, which, you know, for me, and especially purposes with Michael, I see that there's definitely a media fixation on celebrity scandals, and you alluded to that in your documentary, and the newer documentary that you put out, where you showed the titles of, you know, Bill Cosby 2015, O.J. Simpson 1995, Robert Blake 2003, Michael Jackson 2005, where it's just a frenzy. Where Fatty Arbuckle was another example. He's probably one of the earliest examples of that as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, and with the Arvizo family, they were caught in several lies, if I'm not mistaken. I've read books about Aphrodite Jones, where they actually sued. Her book was The Michael Jackson Conspiracy. They actually tried to sue J.C. Penney on some false allegations.
That's right. Janet Arvizo, Gavin's mother, claimed that, well, when they came out of Sears, some security guards approached them, and they found that Gavin had stolen some items, and I believe they were temporarily arrested. And Janet Arvizo then claimed that the security guards molested her. She said, pinched her nipple something like 25 times.
Right.
But it was shown that and then later when she reported this, she had bruises and all, but then it was shown that it was her husband at the time who had beat her, and that she didn't have any bruises right when she was arrested. And so they were scamming J.C. Penney, and J.C. Penney settled with them at the time for a certain amount of money. She also apparently was scamming either Social Security or somehow getting money that wasn't due to her. And there were other lies that they were caught in one big one was that they were held hostage at Neverland and that they couldn't leave, and that they said they considered escaping in a hot air balloon. But
right,
one of the
right. That, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. That didn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because one of the things I showed in my tour is there aren't any secure fences at Neverland. There's only these split level split log fences so you can easily go through it or above it or below it. There weren't even any security cameras at Neverland to speak of. And she's being held hostage, but it's on the record that she took Michael's chauffeur and Rolls Royce, and repeatedly she and the kids went into Solvang and other places and did shopping. She would get a pedicure, and they would take the family even home to their home in LA. So they certainly weren't held hostage.
Yeah, Michael Jackson holding you hostage. That makes sense. That didn't sound. Yeah, a bunch of chimpanzees holding them, keeping them in prison or something. Speaking of which, did you see Bubbles?
No, I didn't see Bubbles. I don't think Bubbles was still there. Maybe that chimpanzees have shorter life experience, lifespans. I saw a lot of other animals, none that I remember by name, but I saw elephant, giraffes, llamas, horses, and cows, and so forth.
Right. I think Bubbles actually, from my understanding at the time Michael died, was still alive, but I think he may have been in another sanctuary, because when chimpanzees get bigger, they're wild, and they're also incredibly strong and dangerous. So Michael, I'm sure, had to get rid of him. But yeah,
that made sense. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, from what you saw, especially, sir, with you being in the media for 32 years, did you think that the media, I certainly believe that, but I wanted to hear what you say. Do you feel that the media was biased in a way it handled Michael's trial?
Yeah, I certainly do. I think they were biased in that, as Tom Mesereau says in the documentary, they were motivated by money, and the more sensational and outrageous they could make things, the more viewers they'd get and the more advertising money they would get. They picked up on a lot of the salacious, really unpleasant things, and they didn't pick up on the things that showed that Michael was innocent. So right. I think the media did that in a big way.
They are still in a way, as we said earlier, it's that frenzy idea where they don't report news now. It's like they throw things out, and they'll throw out snippets and don't report everything, but they let the public, I guess, jump to their own conclusions. And as a result of that, people jump to the conclusion that Michael is guilty, or Bill Cosby is guilty, whoever it is, the celebrity is. It's just trying to knock someone down.
Right. Terrible. And right. With this new film, Leaving Neverland, it's not even, it's not even the news or the media. It's one documentary, which, as you said, was one-sided.
Did you watch the documentary, Larry?
I watched some of it. I watched some of the first part, some of the second part. It just kind of made me sick hearing it. And I thought the two guys were fairly convincing, and my explanation is they're good actors. And they're not the first good actors that have come around. Gavin Arvizo, to a degree, was a good actor. He had studied acting, I know. But I did watch it. I thought it was well produced, and it was produced by a filmmaker who kind of had a specialty in doing things about molestation.
Do you know the name of that producer?
Dan, his name escapes me at the moment.
The director is Dan Reed. Is that the one that?
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, Dan Reed.
So he has a history of doing that. I've heard, I had heard this, and it was reported in the news that David Geffen, I don't know how true it is, but David Geffen, I heard that TMZ's Harvey Levin and even Oprah Winfrey had helped produce that documentary. I don't know how true that is, but I know Oprah did the interview subsequently following the Leaving Neverland documentary. And I thought Oprah basically sold out. What are your thoughts on Oprah Winfrey in the interview? Did you see that?
I saw some of that. Just was persuaded by the emotional arguments that the accusers made. I felt bad about that. I like Oprah. I think she's normally fair, but I think she was wrong in this case.
Oprah is not interested in anything but Oprah to me. That's my opinion. I thought that definitely I tried to watch it, but I felt she was leading the guys in more, not invading them into leaning towards, Michael's guilt, or he wasn't guilty, but to make it look more appear that he was guilty of such things. And she really didn't. I tried to watch some of it myself, and I couldn't stomach it because she wasn't asking any tough questions that I would expect a journalist. And as part of being a journalist, I think that you have to be fair and balanced when you hear things. She should have allowed the opposition or the family to be interviewed as well. And I don't even think she was interested in doing that. And she went to Michael's home and interviewed him at Neverland Ranch, which got 80 million views. And she even interviewed his mother and the children after his death. So I think she was real two-faced.
Yeah, although I guess she felt she wasn't being two-faced. She felt she had new information and she wanted to present it to the public, but it wasn't any factual information. It wasn't anything based on investigations or anything.
Right. Well, she's part of the big industry. But had you heard that when she actually watched the documentary, my understanding, on her birthday, which I don't know about you, but does that seem odd?
Huh? Maybe so.
Yeah, I can't see anybody watching something with a subject matter like that, with several people on their birthday. That threw me off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But you've never met Oprah Winfrey, have you?
No. She lives near or has a home in Santa Barbara, near where I live in Carpinteria, but I haven't met her.
Okay. Yeah. Trying to see if anyone has questions. No one is in the chat room right now, but
okay.
Well, I could ask you this too. When Michael passed, do you remember where you were?
Yeah. I was at home and I just kind of laid down and I was really sad about it. I was partly selfishly sad because I had just finished the first draft of my documentary, Michael Jackson, The Untold Story of Neverland. And I had tickets to go to the O2 concert in London. And I was planning on going and promoting the documentary there. And then I heard Michael died and I just was miserable. One for Michael, but then also for me, I thought, now this concert's going to be canceled and I won't be able to promote my documentary. As it turns out, I went to Los Angeles, which is right nearby where I live, and I was able to promote my documentary to the media there. Yeah, it took so many of a surprise, and it was really an upsetting time.
Yeah, I was really hit hard. I actually, that day, I remember watching on Facebook, and this wasn't when social media was just really taking off, but I saw someone post something that is it true Michael Jackson is dead, and I just thought it was a hoax. And oddly enough, I didn't put the TV on that day. I was playing either Xbox or watching movies, and my mom came home from work, and she sat on the toilet. No, I'm sorry, not the toilet. No, the bathtub. Excuse me. I'm thinking of the right place, bathtub. And yeah, she told me she had some bad news, and she said Michael Jackson had a heart attack and died. And I turned white. My mouth just dropped. I couldn't believe what I heard. And sure enough, I put on CNN, and that's when I saw the helicopter flying over the UCLA hospital. So I think everybody remembers where they were that day. That was fault never. Right.
Yeah, that was a sad time.
Yeah, it was.
One nice thing about it was the fan community rallying together. It was always nice being part of the fan community. I was part of it at the trial and events around the trial, and then when Michael passed away, the fans came together in solidarity. And then when the Conrad Murray trial happened, the fans came together again in solidarity. And I kind of felt like I didn't feel the fan community as vibrant after the Conrad Murray trial, but now they're vibrant again with the Leaving Neverland accusations, and it's nice to see people standing up for Michael.
Right. I was just about to say that, and actually that you noticed that all of the fans across the world since this documentary, Leaving Neverland, has debuted, you have had fans coming from not only the United States, but also in places like the Netherlands and France. They even questioned Dan Reed, the director of it, and the credibility of those accusers. And I wanted to get in about the accusers right fast, if we can, Larry. You know, and when you updated your documentary, you put in those two accusers, Wade Robinson and James Safechuck, and you find inconsistencies in what they were saying.
Right. Showed in my new documentary the main accusers, Wade Robson, and how he testified at trial. Michael never molested him. He told people over the years. He was interviewed early on. And that it was only after Michael died and he applied to become the director of a Cirque du Soleil show about Michael, and he was denied the job. Only then did he have a nervous breakdown and say, oh, I realized after all, Michael did molest me. So he had financial problems, he had marital problems, and Michael was a handy scapegoat.
Yeah, well, you forgot one thing too. Around the time that they were all of this happened, he was dating Michael's niece, Brandy Jackson.
Right, that too.
Right, and apparently it was the cause of Justin Timberlake's breakup with Britney Spears because he had an affair with her.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it. I wasn't there at the time.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah, I guess the thing for me is when you talk about the testimony he gave at trial, and you know Tom Mesereau, he was the first witness, if I'm not mistaken, for the defense, and was subject to heavy cross-examination by Ron Zonin, who was the ADA in Santa Barbara County.
Right.
And he never wavered in his testimony from what Tom Mesereau describes and what I've heard it, subsequently, even before Michael died and after, he spoke highly of him. He said nothing ever happened. And then, in 2013, only after he didn't get that job with Circus de Olay is when he started talking about all of this. And to top it off, in the judgment that was rendered because both he and Safechuck's judgment had been thrown out, apparently, from what I've understand now, is that the judge didn't just throw it out because the case prescribed. He threw it out because he caught Wade Robinson in several lies to try and fit under the, I don't know what the California law is, but basically to make it look like he was molested, he lied. And the judge caught him.
Yeah, I heard that too. There were inconsistencies in the brief they drafted, and that's part of why it was thrown out. I think it also had to do with the statute of limitations too, why the judge threw it out.
Yeah. Right. And do you think that with this documentary now, it's being used so it could help their case?
Right, definitely. I think they think they'll make money now, and they still can sue the estate. They still have some litigation pending against the estate, and they're hoping to make a lot of it. You know, one of the things I talk about was the fact that when Michael settled the first accusations in '93 for whatever it was, 15 or 20 million, Michael thought it would go away and that he was going to make more money anyway if he kept on tour, and he was advised to settle. But in retrospect, by settling then, it made more people come out of the woodwork, like the Arvizos and now the Safechuck and Robson.
Yeah. Well, my understanding was that Michael, through his private investigator in the first, Scott Ross, he stated that Michael's insurance company was the one that settled for him.
Interesting. I don't know if that's the case or not.
Right. Well, if you know, Johnny Cochran and Carl Douglas were actually Michael's attorneys at the time that one happened. And I've actually saw the document because Tom Mesereau, I think, commented on it in a document as well, where they stated the insurance company paid this money out. But nevertheless, whenever you settle, and I can just tell you as an attorney, and you already know this as well, possibly, it doesn't mean you admit guilt to anything. It's just I'm settling this because I don't want to be bothered with it anymore. You take this as a final resolution. And Michael just didn't do that. A lot of celebrities, Bill Cosby did it and thought this would go away for him, and it didn't. A lot of people settle things. And apparently, yeah, it did open up a Pandora's box, I believe, for Michael. Because now that he's dead, they're still talking about this. And, you know, and I said, when I told you in my email, I don't like the fact that they are lynching a dead man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how the judge threw the case out against the Jackson estate. Book publishers wouldn't publish his book, but a documentary producer who felt he could make money and sensationalize it picked it up, and that's what's had the most weight.
Yes, sir. Have you spoken, has the Jackson family seen your documentary? Did they ever make any contact with you about it?
Well, not exactly the family, but I was in touch with Tom Hamilton, who is Paris Jackson's manager, and I sent it to him, and he loved it, and he wanted to share it with Paris. But then I'm not sure Paris ever actually saw it because it was just such a sensitive subject to her. She has, you know, a hard time dealing with it. Prince too, for that matter. But then the Jackson estate looked at it, and they thought it was accurate, and they liked it, and they asked me to get it out there. I don't know which of the Jacksons may or may not have seen it.
Okay. That's fair enough. I just thought maybe one of them might have called you if you got a phone call from Jermaine or Randy or anything like that.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Okay. But I have checked out your YouTube channel, and you've had interviews with one lady, Miss Deborah Willis, who was Michael Jackson's friend for 10 years. You know, that was a very interesting documentary. Did she fly out to Los Angeles to interview with you, or?
Well, she came out to LA, I think to try to meet with Katherine Jackson, because as she said in the interview, she was friends with Michael for a long time, and Michael gave her some stuff to give back to the family if anything ever happened to him. And so she's been trying to give what she has to Katherine, but as far as I know, none of the Jackson family has accepted it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that they're hard to get a hold of, I think. They've been secretive. But, you know, I can't blame them because of the stuff, obviously, that they go through. Right,
right. I know Taj Jackson is hopefully preparing a documentary, too. I look forward to seeing what he comes up with.
Yeah, I've heard that Taj has done several interviews on YouTube where he's talked about it. He's put it on his Twitter page as well, that he was working on it. You know, his cousin Brandy, as well as his other cousin Siggy, who are both Jackie's kids, Jackie Jackson's children. They've spoken out against the documentary, and apparently they know a lot of things that the American media doesn't know, or they know about it and they don't disclose it. You know, the fact that he had a relationship with his cousin, his sister, and cousin Brandy, and my understanding was a sexual relationship. It started when they were 12 years old or 11 years old, that they were dating up until she was a teenager, late teens. So it's very interesting that they knew about it, and apparently Brandy was going to be interviewed on Good Morning America, and this is what we're talking about with media. Good Morning America turned her interview down at the last minute.
Really?
Yeah.
That's bad.
It's bad. Is there no way? There's no way to hold the American media accountable. You feel?
Good question. Just to I bring up as much as possible how they're not fair, and if there's a groundswell of sentiment that they're not fair, I think they would change their ways. Um, one of the things I disagree with the media in particular is how they claim because Michael was unusual, that he was odd and bad. And I try to make the point that Michael was unusual because he kind of lived in a bubble and he had unusual talent. And
he was rich.
Yeah, right. And that's often rich people are isolated from how people think of them and regard them. And rich people can get away with behavior that the people around them tell is fine. But if others aren't responding well to it, they may not know that. But I don't feel it. I don't feel it was immoral that Michael acted childlike. That Michael would have kids sleep over. That Michael would hang with kids. There are a lot of adults that are more comfortable around kids, and then other adults. And it's not that they molest them. It's just that kids are less judgmental and more childlike. And Michael tried to create that childlike quality in himself for creative purposes and just kind of life purposes.
Right. Well, I do have some questions from my fellow YouTubers. They wanted to ask you. One gentleman from We All Beat TV, Ron Hurd, a friend of mine, he wanted to ask, how big was Michael's bedroom and how big was the bed when you went in there?
The bedroom it's kind of a two-story bedroom. The downstairs area were arcade games and toys and mannequins and a couple of bathrooms and closets. It's hard to say just how big it was. Let's see if I'm looking here. 10. So maybe it was 40 or 50 feet by 50 feet, the downstairs area. The upstairs area where his bed was really quite small. And that must have been about, maybe 30 by 30 feet. And he had a large bed, not that unusual. It had kind of sequined bedspread on it, which looked like it wouldn't have been real comfortable down the sequins. But I don't know if it was always there. And you probably, you would pull it down to lay on it. And then in that bedroom, he had DVDs, tapes, a big screen, a projector. When the sheriff's raided his place, he had blankets, crib next to his bed, which was a good thing, nice thing to see. That how he was really a good father and single parent. But anyway, that's a little bit about his bedroom that I saw. And he had that iconic picture above his bed of famous people in history as if it was the Last Supper with Elvis and John F. Kennedy and I think one of the Beatles and Einstein and so forth.
I think Dr. King was
one. Yeah, Dr. King. Exactly. He was one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Michael, definitely his bedroom was big. It's not your average size bedroom. That's the point that a lot of people think when they say Michael. When Michael was on a Martin Bashir documentary and he said it's okay to share your bed with a child, a lot of people interpret that like he was sleeping with children. But
right. I like to say that when I was in Indian Guides with my sons, we would have sleepovers in teepees or other places, and we'd all be sleeping together in the same space, and nothing wrong with that. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with having sleepovers with kids. It is obviously wrong if you're molesting them or treating them in any immoral way, but I don't believe Michael was doing that.
Right, and the other aspect too is that you have to ask if all of this stuff was going on, where are the parents as far as that? Because I'll just say this, if I had ever thought Michael Jackson had did anything, if it were my children and they had told me, I would have to hurt somebody. Have to hurt him.
Yeah, your audio is kind of going in and out. Say that again.
I said that if indeed I had someone, if someone had molested my child, and if they told me that if it was my kids, I would have heard him, but as a father. But I just didn't believe that because I didn't see the evidence of that, and I thought that he was being railroaded.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. But I have another question for you from WeAllBe wanted to ask me again. Would you be willing to work with Michael's nephew to on that documentary to counter the Leaving Neverland narrative?
Yeah, I definitely would like to work with him. I know he has, I think, a GoFundMe project or whatever. I don't feel that you necessarily need a ton of money to make something that's convincing. And so I can kind of work rather inexpensively, and that's one of the reasons why I would like to work with Taj. I'm going to plug my power source in. It's getting a little low on my mouse, but you can go ahead.
Okay, no problem. We got another question from Squeaky G. Squeaky G asks, Michael seemed like a somewhat ruthless businessman. Do you think that he still has enemies from his past dealings?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He must have a lot of enemies from all the businesses that he was involved with. And I know a lot of the fans felt that, well, that maybe Michael was killed because of some of his enemies. And it's hard to say, but there might be some truth in that. And being involved in the Beatles catalog and so much publishing and all, it's quite possible that some
Uh-oh. Looks like Larry's video, his feed has stopped. I don't know if you can hear me, Larry. I'm going to try and wait for you to come back. Speaking of which, let me plug in my laptop. Hold on, guys. Oh, looks like Larry is out of the room.
Okay, I think I'm back. Sorry about
You're back. Okay, hold on. I'm still there.
Okay.
I'm going to plug in my laptop too, but I think it has to do with the bandwidth.
Maybe. Huh.
Right, but we cut off, so I'm going to get back to what you were saying. But we asked the question. Squeaky G said, "Did you think Michael had some ruthless? He was a ruthless businessman. Do you think?" And asked about his past dealings. I think that had something to do with his death.
Yeah, and then it could also be that some of his music competitors might have been out to belittle him, but I don't know if that's the case. So I think it is quite possible that somebody wanted to make him look bad, but I don't know who and if that was the case.
Well, yeah, when you mentioned the Beatles catalog in 1985, even Dick Gregory, who actually was at that trial, Dick Gregory, famous comedian and Jackson family friend, he stated that Michael, when Michael bought it, his own people told him not to buy that. And when he bought it, I noticed that the Wacko Jacko tabloid started subsequently after that in the British media, because that's where it came from. And you know, he also merged it in the 90s, the ATV catalog with Sony, and that became the Sony ATV Publishing. It's the largest publishing company in the world, as a matter of fact now, and it was worth billions of dollars. So this was a black man that owned the rights to Bruce Springsteen, to Niles Rodgers, the Beatles, some of Elvis's music, that was his father-in-law. You had, who else? Babyface, Boys to Men. So that was a lot of revenue that Michael had coming in. So and that goes to another lie. They say that Michael was broke. I didn't know about that, but did you think Michael was broke, or did that ever come up?
Well, I think I do remember his attorneys say, no, Michael had a lot of funds. He wasn't close to being broke. He had a lot of resources, so I don't think that was an issue. I know he had some funding issues with the with Neverland. Well, I don't even know if that's the case. He did sell a portion of Neverland to Colony Capital, Tom Barrack, but I believe the Jackson Estate still owns a portion of it. As a matter of fact, I contacted Tom Hamilton, Paris manager, and saying that now would be a good time for Michael's kids, perhaps, to go ahead and try to purchase the other portions of the estate of Neverland Ranch. And if they could make Neverland Ranch into something philanthropic like Michael did, and like there's been some discussion of, that might be a good way to kind of change the subject and have the positive side of Neverland Ranch come back.
Yeah. Another thing too, Larry, as far as business ventures, in 1993, were you aware that Michael tried to acquire Marvel Comics with Stan Lee?
No, really? Huh.
Yeah. Yes, he was. There are actually pictures of him meeting with Stan Lee. I know that there's audio tape of Michael Jackson talking to I believe it was a German businessman who was friends with Joe Jackson, and they were trying to acquire, or he had talked about acquiring Marvel Comics again, as well as the rights to the Universal Studios movies. This included E.T., Jaws, and Spider-Man. He was going to buy all of that. So he virtually, if he had acquired all of that at the time, I don't think there wasn't a country he couldn't buy.
Yeah. And he was a wealthy guy, although he did have a lavish lifestyle, and it was partly to not just for himself, but all the money he spent on Neverland was not just for himself, but to give others a good time. People in the area where he lived, but people from all over the country and world got special visits to Neverland.
Oh, wow. So I do want to ask you, so I know you told me you did the documentary, you were hired to do that in Neverland. That was your first time being at Neverland?
Yeah, right. Ever since I saw it on Oprah's interview with him, I thought, wow, that would be a cool place to visit. Right. And I had actually driven by the front gates before, because I lived not that far away, but I'd never been in it, and it was fabulous to go inside.
Yeah, it seemed, looking at it, it seemed like a fabulous place to be. Yeah. And even the family compound in Encino, it seems like a nice area.
Right. Yeah, that's nice too.
Yeah. Did you hear? I want to ask you this before we leave. Also, that the district attorney that was working on Michael's case that tried to get him, I believe his name was Tom Sneddon.
Yeah. Right.
I had heard this, and I don't know if you know anything, that when Michael purchased Neverland Valley Ranch, there were people that were opposed to him buying that, including Tom Sneddon and many people in the Santa Barbara area. Did you ever hear of anything like that?
No, I didn't hear that. Although in a way, I'm not surprised. Tom Sneddon was, to my understanding, a very conservative man that didn't accept anybody being different than his conservative lifestyle, and he had it out for Michael. And I think people who don't understand someone having a fun, childlike nature maybe wouldn't want them living near him. But I don't think. Well, as it turns out, I don't think Neverland disturbed any of the neighbors. In fact, Michael apparently was quite generous to the neighbors, allowing them on the property and being part of other events he had there.
Yeah, he seemed like a fun guy. Well, I had heard this. I think the lady who sold, there was a book out where she talked about the real estate agent who sold that property to Michael in the 80s, that they were trying to, I believe the neighbors, acquire commercial development of that area. But Michael bought it. They didn't like it. But
that might be Gloria Berlin was the real estate agent. Yeah.
She actually knew Michael as a child, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think she was friends with Michael's mother, and she lived in the neighborhood of the Havenhurst estate, I think.
Yeah. Well, Dick Van Patten lived in the same neighborhood as well, and Michael and Latoya would come over. So Aretha Franklin as well.
Oh, huh. What do you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's California. So
Yeah. Where do you live?
I am from New Orleans.
Oh, nice.
The other.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Nice spot too, though.
Yes, it is. You should come down for next time when we have Mardi Gras.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Right. But they have a lot going on. There's always something that goes on a weekend. They just had the Crawfish Festival last weekend. They're getting ready for Jazz Fest is the next thing that's coming up in April. And I saw that the Rolling Stones canceled their appearance. So a lot of people are upset about that.
Do you know whether Michael ever went to Mardi Gras in New Orleans?
If they did, I don't think we would have been able to get out the house because the streets would have been packed.
Yeah, true.
You know, that would be something to see Michael Jackson at the in a second line. So
yeah.
yeah, I wish they did. I know we would have loved to have him. I'm a member of Zulu. We would love to have him come to the club. I'm sure they wouldn't mind him being king or like Louis Armstrong was, but I think you got to be a member to be king. But even to be a grand marshal, that would have been great. You know,
Yeah.
nobody would be able to move because everybody would try and see Michael. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, any other questions?
Let me see if I have any. I don't think I have any more. You know, once again I appreciate you doing this interview. Let me ask the people right quick. Any other questions, guys? Just right fast. I don't think anyone is saying anything yet. We got some people watching still. But Larry, do you have? I will ask you this, Larry. How can people get in touch with you? And do you have any other projects coming?
Well, I'm doing some more interviews to do with the Michael Jackson legacy. They can get in touch with me through my website, nimmer.net, NIMMER.net. I also have some other videos about Michael Jackson that you can look at from my website. Well, one interesting thing was a special fan tour I went to Neverland. That was given to Sebastian Broussard by Tom Barrack, the current owner of Neverland. And I have a tour in 2011 that we did, and that's on my website. So, but it was sure a pleasure to work for Michael Jackson and his legacy. And I just hope and I believe over time, Michael, the truth will become known, and Michael won't be thought of as a child molester, and he'll be thought of as a great philanthropic person who was so creative and quite an artist.
Right. He's listed in the Guinness World Book Records as the most charitable celebrity of all time. I think Bob Hope is the only one that rivaled him in terms of that. And I'll say on another end, Michael Jackson also, as far as him, whether he didn't want to be black or not, Michael Jackson has given over $250 million to historically black colleges and universities and charities. And when he purchased that catalog, he gave Little Richard back his publishing rights, and he gave Sly Stone $1 million for his royalties. So, very charitable person. He didn't have to do that, but he did.
Yeah. Oh, and you know, him lightening his skin thing. He had impetigo, where the skin was blotchy, white and black, and it was easier to make it all lighter than darker to not look odd. You know, he was self-conscious of his looks, and I don't think he did it in any way to be a white person, but just to kind of even out his complexion.
So you don't think he was desirous of being Caucasian?
No, not at all. I think he really respected the black community, and he grew up in it. Yes,
he did. He was on cover of Ebony Jet magazine. He did Soul Train Awards all the time. So I always saw that. And, you know, being a celebrity, the big thing for me is, as a kid, I remember watching the Remember the Time music video where they showed all of these black actors and athletes like Magic Johnson and Eddie Murphy and Iman. They showed blacks in Egypt, something that no movie has ever done in Hollywood.
Oh, huh. Nice.
Yeah, so that was big. I had one other question from Brother We All Be TV. Ron Hurd, he wanted to ask, do you believe there's a conspiracy to not have black musicians control their creative works?
I'm not aware of one, but I'm not in the industry, so I couldn't say one way or the other. I know black people have been discriminated against unfairly, and so maybe there is that going on, but I don't have any special knowledge of it.
Okay. Well, Larry, once again, thank you for an incredible interview. I look forward to talking with you again in the near future, and for bringing some truth to this matter, because most Americans now do not, I don't think, read the newspaper or even read news per se. They look at headlines and they watch. Now social media has replaced what was once in print. And so I think it's important when we have interviews and discussions like this, because you were a witness to a American trial, and you saw firsthand what was going on, and you gave expert testimony. So thank you for that.
Okay, well, thank you, Gavin. Thank you for what you do. And if I'm in New Orleans, I'll have to look you up.
Oh, most definitely, sir. Well, you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and tell your family hello for me.
Okay, thanks again. Nice talking with you.
Okay, this has been Gavin Richard Presents, guys. I'm out. Love y'all. Be blessed.